Two quotations for you today. The first is from Nicky Gumbel in his foreword to Pete Gregg's book, How to Pray. He says this: prayer is the most important activity of our lives. Think about that for a moment. Prayer is the most important activity of our lives. And the second is like it, comes from Eugene Peterson's book, Under the Unpredictable Plant. And he says, all people, Christian and non-Christian, who have looked long and carefully at the uniqueness of the human enterprise agree on this: prayer is our core activity. The life of prayer, the practice of prayer, is at the centre of the human enterprise. I don't know what you think about that. I think it's strange. We live in unusual times where prayer has dropped off the agenda for us as a culture. And we tend to think of prayer in our materialistic and mechanistic society as being a waste of time, as being a meaningless sacrifice of resource. And why would we pray when we could act? And why would we pray when we could be doing something more tangible? Why would we be stuck in a room on our own or with others when we could be making plans or pressing forwards? Well, actually, this reminds us that our agency means nothing if it is not plugged into the agency and the perspective of God. And the power of God. There's a wonderful passage in Romans chapter 12, which I'd just like to read to you. It's famous. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. As we worship, as we pray, we respond to the God who in his mercy has promised to hear our prayers through Christ. It goes on, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing and perfect will. You see, as we pray, we find ourselves, or we are found by God. We find ourselves found, to use that phrase. As we pray, we are able to locate ourselves with reference to God and with reference to his reality, his kingdom. It's a bit like when you turn on a phone and suddenly it starts talking to the satellite and you're there on the map. Others can find you, others can call you, you become a point on the map, and also you can locate yourself within the bigger picture. And it's like that with prayer. As we pray, we find our reference point, we gain our true bearings. And as we pray, we are enabled to find a better way of thinking, a more Goddish way of thinking. We gain his perspective, and we gain his viewpoint on life. We discern his voice. And as we do that, we're able to discern his will for us and for our lives. And so as we pray, we are able to step forward in a more spirit-led way, in a more sure-footed way, and our contribution to his kingdom becomes substantial, so that our action becomes fruitful in eternity and not just for this age. So let's remember this week that prayer is our core activity.